what we're hearing out of the Supreme Court today is in response to the Biden administration asking the Supreme Court to get involved.
That's right. The Biden administration has really tried to push to preserve abortion access in the wake of the Dobbs decision last year, and so they joined this legal effort. But they're also keeping an eye on the political situation, too. They know that restrictions on abortion were a political loser for Republicans in 2022, and should the Supreme Court abandon those restrictions and really let mifepristone be banned by the courts, I think that a lot of people in the White House and the Democratic Party could see that as another boost for their voters, really encouraging them to get out to the polls in 2024 and not only vote for Joe Biden, but also Democratic congressional candidates.
That's where I wanted to go with you here, Megan. We know how this polls. More than 70% of Americans oppose some of the restrictions that we're talking about here. You don't see numbers like that for most issues. Does this go down ballot? Is this not only a presidential campaign issue, but one that will follow members of Congress through the next year and change?
Absolutely. I think we saw that in 2022, which, was just a few months after the Dobbs decision. And I think what's more here, too, is this is probably the last issue the Supreme Court wants to be dealing with right now. They saw their numbers, their approval ratings tank, and clearly they're not up for re-election, but trust in the Supreme Court is important to the justices and to the country at large. So they saw the numbers tank after the Dobbs decision overturning Roe v. Wade, and then they've sort of gotten a little bit better over the last few months. Last week, we saw what happened with Clarence Thomas and the luxury vacations he took on a billionaire's dime, and now we see abortion appearing again before the court.
Right, it's a lot of issues the Supreme Court at this one juncture is facing. Jordan, you mentioned the politics of this all. I want to bring you a little bit of what Vice President Harris on Thursday said in response to the abortion pill ruling in Texas. Take a listen.
We are having an experience where the women of America in particular have been in a state of fear about what this means for them, what this means for the people they love. The ramifications of this decision 5 days ago are wide sweeping, and for that reason require, we do believe, a very serious response.
Vice President Kamala Harris there, she's really taken this issue to be the leader in the White House, to go out and speak about it. Her poll numbers, though, kind of lackluster. If this is going to be a huge 2024 issue, can this actually help her star rise in the Democratic Party?
I think it could. She handled it pretty ably in 2022, becoming really the spokesperson for this White House on abortion. President Joe Biden is deeply Catholic. He is uncomfortable talking about this issue. And Kamala Harris, on the other hand, was struggling to find a lane for herself, a real issue to champion, and she did find one with abortion rights. So, as you mentioned, Annmarie, this is yet another opportunity for her to show her chops on this, be a leader and a vocal presence inside the White House on an issue that a lot of Democratic voters and a lot of Americans care about.
As we head into this weekend, guys, we're preparing for a big day on Monday, and it's not going to be here in Washington. It's going to be in New York. Not only do we have the field hearing that we talked about, Annmarie, on violent crime in the city, Jim Jordan will be in Lower Manhattan. So, too, will be the Speaker of the House, Megan. Kevin McCarthy is going to the New York Stock Exchange.
Yes.
To what? Soothe investors or scare them?
Well, he did tell Annmarie, what was it, just last week, that they should be worried.
They should be worried.
Yeah.
I said, what's your message? Should Wall Street be worried? He said, yes, Wall Street should be worried.
Should be a fun day on the markets, huh?
Yes. So he is having yet another Reagan-esque moment. He spoke at the Reagan Library last week, and now he's going to the stock exchange to speak, much like Reagan, whose portrait hangs over his desk, and he says is the reason why he's a Republican, spoke at the stock market all those years ago. He's going to be talking about the debt limit, which is on the minds of many who will be standing there on the floor, and clearly us in Washington as well.
So does he want a market reaction? Because the fact that Wall Street isn't worried, you'd think a politician would say, well, this is good. I'm not getting all these phone calls. But yeah, he said to me, they should be worried. There's no market reaction. And now he's going to the New York Stock Exchange to say, you should be concerned.
So his offer right now, or that we're hearing essentially, is to push this off for another year, till May 2024. The debt limit, hitting that, and then there would be extraordinary measures beyond then that could actually get us past the election. I think what he's trying to do really is throw this in the president's court. He has said all along, Joe Biden needs to sit down and talk to me. We haven't met since February, and this is just another attempt with the stock market, at his feet to make that call once again.
So, Jordan, what's the potential for a backfire here? You want to use Wall Street to make a point. Wall Street may not play along. Let's say the market dumps on whatever he says on Monday. The White House is a pretty easy response on that, right?
Absolutely. It gives the White House more leverage, and it paints Kevin McCarthy as the chaos agent if the markets react negatively to his comments. The White House's stance all along is that congressional Republicans need to come up with a budget in order to get a meeting with President Biden. And the internal view among the staff is that Republicans in the House don't have a majority around a proposal on the debt limit, despite what Kevin McCarthy is going to offer on Monday. And so their stance is, look, we can't negotiate with Play-Doh. I mean, it's just falling apart in your hands.
But Jordan, end of the day, if the Republicans do not get a budget in time, there is no meeting with Biden. Say the U.S. did default. Biden is the president of the United States. He owns that. Do they have a plan B?
Yeah, no, you point out a very big problem,
normal,
which is that
everyday Americans are not going to blame the Speaker of the House, are they?
Well, I think the blame will be spread around to both Kevin McCarthy and Joe Biden.
If you go back to 2011, though, it wasn't about an individual. It was about a party, right? It was the majority at the time, and Kevin McCarthy could share some of that.
Exactly. And you go back to other crises like the government shutdowns in the 90s, which really backfired on Republicans. So right now, the White House is making the gamble, with a few months to play around, that this is not going to come back on them. If we do get closer to an X date and there's no solution and Biden is refusing to negotiate and Republicans do manage to conjure up some kind of proposal, then I think the tables turn and President Joe Biden is put on his back foot.